Hey everybody, Mark here from AmericanAeration.com, and in today's video I want to briefly go over a question or cover a question that has come in from time to time regarding pond circulators and pond de-icers. And that question is, are they basically the same thing? And in a nutshell, there are a lot of similarities, yes, for sure. They both use a submersible waterproof motor. They will have a power cable of varying lengths available, and they will have a prop on the front of the device. Once in the water, both will be positioned in some kind of horizontal fashion so that the prop is creating a current or turbulence and agitating the water in a more horizontal way, pushing debris out or vegetation out, or in the case of winter use, you'd be pushing ice away from a area that you want to protect, a dock or boat ramp or such, and it's just to avoid ice damage that, you know, winter can create in certain places. So there's a lot of similarities to the way these things are mounted too. Usually they're dock mounted, or they could be suspended under a float. Both of them could work that way. But there are differences for sure. What we're looking at here is the Aquaticlear Circulator from Kasco. And this comes in 3 pump sizes: 1/2 horsepower, 3/4 horsepower, and 1 horsepower. And it has a fitting on the front of it that helps keep vegetation, algae, weeds from gunking up the prop, and grasses, things like that too. And they will slip right off the front of these prongs and be cleared away from the device and from the area. When you get into winter use, the same setup can be used, but Kasco does not recommend using this this pronged assembly here. It is plastic, and it may not protect the pump very well from ice. So they would have us switch over to this metal cage, which is the standard historical de-icing protective shield that you'd have on the front of the de-icer, and it's one they've used for decades. The other difference would be that they do typically use a different prop for the de-icing, but the core components of the setup and the system and the basic deployment of the system is very, very similar, pretty much the same. Where you get into some nuance though is in how to set these things up, and I'll go over that briefly, and we're going to do some follow-up videos on each one of these tools for use, seasonal use in a pond or lake. So stay tuned for that. But in a nutshell, when we're working with the circulator, we will typically deploy that just below the surface of the water. There's a couple different things you could use it for, but for most use where we're trying to clear debris from an area or maybe push algae or weeds out from an area, we would start by putting the device down a foot or two, relatively shallow, and running it in a pretty much pure horizontal fashion. And that's going to give you some good clearance and coverage for stuff on the surface. If you want to aerate a little bit, do horizontal aeration with something like this, you can take it a little bit lower and you can point it more up towards the surface so that it will agitate the surface a bit more. And again, anytime you agitate the surface of the pond, there will be oxygen transfer from the atmosphere coming into the water. Now, this isn't probably going to be as good as something like a true surface aerator or an aerating fountain would be, but it's definitely a tool that can be used in relatively shallow water to still aerate. The device can also be lowered a little bit more and pointed more downward if you are in a particular setting where you can legally, in effect, dredge or move muck from an area and relocate it or blow it out and move it to another area. And the device has been used for that for many years too. In terms of winter usage, de-icing is a bit different. When we are trying to manage ice around a dock or structure, we would lower the device, usually from a dock mount assembly, and we would lower it deeper into the water and then point it more upwards towards the surface. And the reason for this is, in the winter, the warmer water will actually be down lower in the pond, not at the surface. And by taking that warmer water and pushing it or forcing it up into the area we're trying to clear of ice, it helps it actually do that job along with the circulation of the de-icer itself. So there's definitely a difference in the way that you would deploy these things for the purpose at hand. As well, there's nuances that we'll talk about in the follow-up videos where we get into certain setups and suggested setups for dock protection, what kind of range you could expect with the various devices in terms of their horsepower, and just use cases, good ways to use devices like this to help you manage your pond better. So stay tuned for those videos down the road. For now, just to answer the very basic question, are pond circulators and pond de-icers pretty much the same thing? In many ways, yes, certainly they are, with some nuance. And then when you get into the actual setup and deployment of the devices, they do differ quite a bit in that regard. So I hope this helps for you, and I appreciate you joining me. If you have any questions, again, my name is Mark. Reach out to me at AmericanAeration.com. I'm happy to help if I can, and I hope you have a great day wherever you are.